Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jeff, and this is the 2023 Dodge Challenger Shakedown, which is one of 7 last call cars. Dodge is, of course, making the switch to go to EV muscle cars and decided to go out with a bang for their internal combustion cars, and this car is no exception. This was the first of the last call cars that was available, and we're going to talk a little bit about where that history comes from for what this car is and what the availability and pricing looks like. So, all of the last cars are, of course, going to be limited production. That's due to the limited special edition sort of heritage stuff that's going on with a lot of these packages. And this one was a little bit of a mystery to me when it came out. I wasn't totally familiar with where the Shakedown styling went from. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the inspiration for this car comes from a 1971 Dodge Challenger that was modified with all modern components. They put a brand new 6.1 liter Hemi under the hood and unveiled the car in 2016. Now that Challenger wore a very similar livery to the one you see here. The stripes and everything, the shaker, all recreated on that car, are now here in this version of the 2023 Dodge Challenger Shakedown. Now, all of them have limited production numbers, which is the whole thing with the limited series, and the Shakedown is no exception. They're only going to build 1,000 Shakedowns total. Now, they have split the production. The first 500 will be finished in Destroyer Gray, and those are going to be narrow-body, fully loaded Scat Packs. Or, the other 500 are going to be this, finished in pitch black with the wide-body package, another fully loaded Scat Pack, but just with more options, and these are going to demand a heavier premium. The prices for these come out at $68,000, and we're going to talk about what this specific car is equipped with, because of course, you still have your option if you'd like to go automatic or manual. We'll talk about some of the benefits, but these cars have been in production for a little while now, so rather than talk about all of the ins and outs and the nitty-gritty of the Dodge Challenger, I figure let's cover this specific car instead, and we'll go through some of the options, the exterior, we'll talk about the interior, and of course, we'll look at the engine, this beast right here, and of course, we'll take it for a drive.
Okay, so let's start with the exterior of the Dodge Challenger Shakedown. So obviously this car is finished in pitch black, and it has the wide body fenders, which we know are a $6,000 option and are now available for the RT models. So that's pretty cool. No longer just limited to the Hellcat. Now, some of the cool things at the front here, right away noticeable, we have a shaker, which I believe is non-functional, because as I'll show you in the engine bay later, we actually have an air intake right there. We have the black hood pins, which are of course functional, and then you even get your cold air intakes, which I'll talk a little bit more about this in the engine bay, but there's some interesting quirks in there as well. In the front, we have the Challenger and RT badge, which these are supposed to be bespoke to this car, so if you want them finished this way, you get it on the Dodge Challenger Shakedown. Obviously, we get the sort of standard splitters and some of the aggressive stuff that we would expect with the wide-body high-performance models. Now over here, we have some satin black wheels, and as you can see, we have those awesome SRT Brembo brakes. Another thing we have is this 392 badge, which is now finished in red. That is, of course, specific to the Shakedown, along with these stripes that go over top as well. Everything is business as usual. We do have the vintage style fuel cap on this car. And then, as we come around to the rear here, everything seems fairly straightforward, but just in a subtle nod, we do have our Shakedown badge over here. So pretty cool, nothing crazy on the exterior. This is a fairly stealthy car, but one of the things I like about it is just how good this thing looks. I mean, the whole black and red livery, this is just one really, really menacing car. And in case you were curious, we do have the key on switch. Nothing special, standard Dodge key. This, of course, does have remote start, and I'll give you guys a rev after we take a look at the engine bay. But now that we've seen this, we should probably take a look at what's going on underneath the hood. Okay, so the hood has been released from the button inside, so now we have to go ahead and just undo our hood pins. Go ahead and pull those out in the least damaging way possible. Not sure why that guy was so stuck. Go over here, same thing. Release these. All right. Would definitely be easier to undo those before popping the hood. Then we'll go ahead, pop the hood. All right, so we have some other cool things going on here. Here's that air intake I mentioned. The shaker doesn't appear to be functional in any way. It looks like it all comes through here, which makes sense. Even Ford's made the same decision with the new Mach 1. They don't have a shaker in their car either, which I believe they said they could get more performance by doing it this way. The first thing I want to point your attention to is right here. This is our last call badge. We can see this is a Challenger last call, and I imagine maybe the production models might have more of this. This being a press car, who knows? But it's pretty cool. Obviously, anything to help the collectability, being that you bought a last call car. And then we do have nice shaker sticker in the back there, which is pretty cool. So what do we have here? Now this is a 6.4 liter Hemi V8, or semi-Hemi as a lot of people like to call it. And what you've got is about 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. Now what that's good for is that'll help move this car that's fairly heavy. It'll move it 0 to 60 in around 4.3 seconds, giving you a quarter mile time of around 12.4 seconds and a top speed of 174 miles an hour. So this thing is no slouch. It has the performance to match the very aggressive styling that this particular car has. But I mentioned the cold air headlights. Let's talk about that a little bit. So first of all, cold air headlights, one of the coolest things on the planet. Dodge has just been off the charts building cool stuff. Now you can see we actually have some stuff getting caught in there just from sort of driving the car. There's actually a cap on the back of this, but if we take a look at the air filter box, you can see we have this big gaping hole in here. Dodge actually sells a $40 part through direct connection, where if you take off that cap off the headlight after you remove this plate, you can go ahead and just connect that part and then have functional cold air through the headlights, and then that'll go in here. Now, while that wasn't set up like that at the factory, I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think I'd want those to be functional, but it should be fairly straightforward to make them functional. The other part is that's kind of a bummer, is this Challenger last call plate, this comes off. This isn't like part of the car. So this plate, who knows if people are going to make reproductions of it, it kind of just sucks away some of the specialness, knowing that this part of the car can come out pretty easily, can even get damaged pretty easily. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be some way to get a replacement for that from Dodge. But nonetheless, if you're curious about fuel economy, this thing is rated for 15 city, 24 highway with 18 combined. And I have to say, driving it here in Phoenix, Arizona, I've been getting around sort of 17.5, which is actually really impressive for me. I expected it to be a lot worse. That's better than you'll get in any sort of V8 trucks. So this thing has actually been way better than I thought. I can tell you, I haven't been taking it easy. I've been enjoying myself with the car. And you still get pretty good gas mileage. So even with spirited driving, you can still expect to get fairly decent gas mileage. And if you get the automatic transmission, which this one does have, it's equipped with the 8-speed automatic transmission, you get MDS, which is the fuel-saving mode for the engine. And what it'll do is it'll actually cut it down to just 4 cylinders, saving you some gas when the engine doesn't need to be accelerating. But obviously, every time you touch the gas pedal, it's going to switch off of that mode. But if you're coasting down hills or sitting in traffic, whatever the case is, it'll help save you some gas. So that's a useful feature if you choose to go with the 8-speed automatic. If you choose not to, though, of course, there's a 6-speed Tremec manual transmission, and that'll be a blast. I believe it even has rev matching, so that's a pretty cool feature. But enough of me talking. Let me give you guys some revs. Okay, so now we're on the inside of the Dodge Challenger Shakedown, and one of the coolest things that I'll point out right off the bat is going to be the Shakedown badge. It's over here. So this is like a physical Shakedown badge where the outside is just a sticker. At least you get a sort of physical 3D printed looking thing, which I'm surprised they didn't do for the back, honestly. At least you get that in here. So right off the bat, you can see we actually have some carbon fiber, and that's because this car comes equipped with the carbon fiber suede package. So we get carbon, and of course we get suede on the roof and then the seats as well. And we get this little blacked out B emblem, which is great, because obviously that's helped stand it. It doesn't ruin the color contrast by making it yellow in a car that's all black and red. Now, first of all, these doors are very hefty, but it's really actually pretty quiet in here while you're driving. You get the performance pages because this is a Scat Pack. This, of course, comes with all of the awesome performance pages options. So you get to use line lock, you can use launch control, you can even set all of your performance preferences. Obviously, even turn off traction control, whatever you're doing if you decide to take it to the track. And of course, even the buttons here to match. Drive mode gets you into the performance pages menu. Launch does exactly what you think it does. And of course, using some of the OK buttons and other stuff that's over here will help you use line lock. Now, one of the things that I thought was a little odd by the steering wheel is that all of the buttons are actually in the back as far as volume control, some of the other adjustments. And then because of that, these paddle shifters, I'll go ahead and show you, are actually kind of like half paddle shifters. You can see they're not the full back. Would have been nice to have full back paddle shifters, but not a big deal. In the middle here, you get your multi-informational display like you would expect, with some analog digits on the side that looked very sort of modern, retro type of style, which is pretty cool. All of your headlight displays, your trunk pop, things like that, all of your standard driver controls. And then here we have our 8-speed automatic shifter to move over to manual mode if we want. Of course, dual climate control as well in the front, which works fantastic. And this car even features heated and ventilated seats. Now, here is the back seat of the car. One of the things I want to point out, these big, cool, fastback pillars actually kind of get in the way. So they're a little bit of a blind spot. Makes me nervous to back up. So I say if you ever park this car, make sure you back it in. And of course has the backup camera, which isn't that great at night, but that's to be expected. You get a flip down for cup holders. There's not a ton of room back here, better for grocery bags. And of course you have a massive trunk in the back if you ever need it. But these seats are definitely big enough where you could potentially transport people if you needed to in a tight situation. So that's a quick look at the interior. But now that we've kind of checked everything out, like I said, this is fairly standard Dodge Challenger. This is just the sort of premium, the best of everything in this car. Now it's time that we take it for a drive. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take the Shakedown for a drive. So first of all, you guys can see from that camera angle just how cool it is to get behind the wheel of this car. You of course get the shaker, which does move a little bit when you rev the car. So you can see it move a little bit. Now I will say, the driving point of view, it's hard to see. I can clearly see the driver's side hood pin, but it's really hard for me to see the one on the passenger side. So that kind of gives you a perspective of sort of the curvature and just how big the car is. It can make some of those things a little bit harder to see, which not a big deal. If you're taller, you can set up a little bit different and that might suit you a little bit better. But just something to keep in mind, just to kind of remind you the size of this car. That being said, like I said, there's a lot of benefits in terms of what you can fit. The rear trunk in this thing will actually hold more bodies than a hearse, I'm pretty sure. So it's pretty impressive in that sense. Not to mention all of the cool hardware. Now, before I get too sort of nitty-picky or into the nitty-gritty of like what's going on with the driving experience, let me just tell you this. If you gave me an empty parking lot and said you could have the keys to any vehicle you want to just mess around in this parking lot, what would you take? It would be any of the Mopars. The way that Dodge has designed these vehicles is just absolutely incredible. They have truly done something special. These are pure fun-having vehicles at the end of the day. Yes, you will suffer from gas mileage if you get on it, like I said, but the fact that you can get 17.5 without having to like make too many sacrifices is amazing. You don't have to put it into a weird sport mode or anything like that and still get a ton of fun out of the car. So that part I really do appreciate. The other thing is the sound. Just from the factory, the exhaust in this thing is incredible. It's not loud when you're on the freeway, and obviously if you put everything in street mode, the car is actually a little bit more civil and you don't get as much of some of the craziness. As far as steering, the cool part is that'll actually change. So as you change your drive mode, the steering from the car will actually change its inputs as well. And then as you move through everything, you'd be surprised what this car can do. The sheer grip available from these big meaty tires, obviously enhanced a little bit by having that wide body, is really, really impressive. So that's something that I really enjoy. You can probably hear a little bit of the exhaust note in the background, and we can even get on it in a little bit here, and you can hear what that sounds like. It's a really good sounding car. Oh yeah, you can hear the quick shifts. Oh yeah. It's a good car. With the windows down, obviously it's a lot better, but for audio purposes, I don't really have that going either. I try to turn down the a little bit of the added creature comforts because we are in Phoenix, so it can be a little bit warm in here sometimes. But what a cool car, man. I mean, just the looks of it, you feel good driving this thing. It's almost like the everything your mother warned you about type of thing. Such a fun car. But in terms of just general drivability, so you get a great experience in here. Traction control will prevent you from doing anything too reckless most of the time, but you got to remember you still have 485 horsepower. So if you mess up, this thing will definitely spin you all the way around. If you take off your assists, do that at your own risk, preferably obviously in a track setting, because that's the type of environment where you won't have to worry about it as much should something happen. So buyer beware in that sense, but you can have a lot of fun with those things off. These things are a blast around the track. You'd be surprised just what all you can actually get out of them, and they're even fairly balanced cars at that. So as the steering, like I said, that kind of changes. If you want more stiffness, you can put it in track mode and it'll do that. You can still keep traction control on by using that custom mode that's available in your performance pages and in your SRT dashboard, which I think is a pretty cool feature. It offers a lot versus some of these cars where you don't have any input at all. They just have a sport mode, and then you're kind of just stuck with whatever they decide to set the car to. In this case, it's adjustable, and that's nice because it's always nice to have more control of your car, especially when you're paying $68,000 for this car. But like I said, the cool part about these, last call, special edition, all that type of stuff. So very quick cars. One thing I forgot to mention earlier for the interior is this actually has the Harman Kardon sound system in it, and it even includes a subwoofer, and it's incredible. I haven't got anywhere near the full opportunities that you get with that sound system, but it sounds absolutely incredible. So that's a huge plus in my book, because you don't even need to add an aftermarket sound system. Dodge already went ahead and did it for you. So a very cool car. You actually get better gas mileage than you think. You get lots of performance. It feels pretty well. It feels heavy, admittedly, but it's like a playful heavy. Like I said, it's really easy to actually get the rear end to come out on you. And if you need the faster versions, they exist. You can go out and buy a Hellcat or a Demon or a Super Stock, you know, Hellcat Red Eye. All those other options exist. But I think these cars, for what they are, they're really cool, especially given that these are sort of going to be limited production. We'll have to see how many of these we start seeing at some of our local Cars and Coffees and things like that, if they start making the rounds and people are bringing out their last call cars. Of course, they're all special editions. There may be ADM on them, who knows? But what I will say, if you're interested in one of these cars, obviously this is the end. 2023 is the last of the internal combustion engine muscle cars from Dodge, and these are just such a cool platform. How could you not love these cars? The brakes are phenomenal, by the way, which you do need, because like I said, this is a fairly hefty car, but the brakes work tremendously well. The paddle shifters, you can blip through everything. Even just the standard automatic shifting is totally fine. One thing that would be nice would be able to have the Speedo, in my opinion, is not the most readable, but you do have the electric version if you want, and that multifunctional display in the center. But I prefer to have, you know, either the fuel economy if I'm watching stuff, so you can kind of switch that around whatever your preference is. And of course, you have all the buttons on the steering wheel to adjust things as well. But the OK sort of dash it shows you in the interior section on the left side is actually for managing most of your stuff on your central console, which obviously has some of its own buttons. I will say the heated and ventilated seats is a huge plus. Really, you know, the best part about this car is when you pay $68,000 for it, it comes with everything that you could possibly want to modify. Like, sure, you could tell yourself you want different wheels, but I honestly love the wheels that are on this car. I think it looks phenomenal. The whole package is just an aggressive, fantastic muscle car. So with that, that's just a look at the 2023 Dodge Challenger Shakedown. So obviously, if you're interested in these cars, you need to go and check out your local Dodge dealership and see what the availability is. See if you can get one ordered for yourself. Obviously, limited production, special availability, so you'll have to make sure you get in early if you're interested in purchasing any, really, of the last call cars. So with that, that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, could hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. And consider getting subscribed for more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Oh yeah.